Hi, everyone. This is Diana. I am the CMO of the Holistic Panda, and I'm so excited to be joined by Ayurvedic and goal-based life coach Sonika Burke today. Hi, Sonika. How are you?
Hi, Diana. I'm doing well. It's so nice to see you.
I know. How's everything in Vancouver right now?
It's good. It's been a little cloudy, which
Yeah.
is not a surprise. And yeah, I've been reading the news, so just hoping things get back to normal here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to join me today. It's been a while since we've done a live chat, but I am so excited to be doing one with you today. Before we
Mhm.
dive in, I'm just going to do a little introduction. If I miss out any information, please feel free to let me know. Vasanika is an engineer with a background in computer science, cybersecurity, and data privacy. She's worked in corporate America and Big Four consulting and Silicon Valley big tech. She's currently working in a healthcare software company in a Vancouver startup and serves on executive boards of various international nonprofits. She's also an Ayurvedic and goal-based life coach and have worked with people from various cultural and professional backgrounds. And during the pandemic, she has coached the Southeast Asian community, immigrant women, and singles. So that's amazing. First of all, you're a woman in STEM. That's amazing. I think when we first connected, I was like, that is so cool. You're not only an Ayurvedic and life coach, but you're also an engineer. So my first question is, how does someone with like a science background, an engineer, veer into the path of Ayurvedic medicine and coaching?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the introduction, first of all. Oh my goodness. I have to say that my uh, path into coaching and holistic wellness started because I realized that I have accomplished a lot of my goals on paper, being an engineer and being working for all these amazing companies. But I realized that what looked good on paper did not feel good inside. And I think that's kind of where I started realizing there was a mismatch and just went on this journey of looking inwards. um, so I think if I have to bottom line, I went into this because of a lot of work stress and anxiety, and I realized that there has to be more than just having a good career and accomplishing my professional goals. I just wanted to start paying more attention to my personal life and my well-being. So that's kind of how it all started for me.
Oh, amazing. And I know you recently did a blog article for us on sort of your long and evolving journey with Ayurvedic medicine. So Ayurvedic medicine is something that you have practiced from an early age. Can you tell us? I think a lot of people don't really know. I think they've probably heard of the term Ayurveda, but what exactly
Mhm.
is Ayurvedic medicine? I know it's an ancient alternative medicine that's came from India. If you can tell us a little bit more about what,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, so Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word, and Ayur means life, and Veda means science or wisdom. So basically, Ayurveda means the science of life or the wisdom of life. And it's a 5,000-year-old science. It's been well documented in Sanskrit, and there's been people practicing Ayurveda generationally. It was unconsciously a part of my life. Like a few examples that I gave you, if I had a small paper cut or if I had a small bruise on my hand, we would reach out for turmeric to apply to that area rather than a band-aid, which is very common in North America where I moved here. Like you immediately go for pharmaceutical based modalities.
That's so
So
sorry, that's so funny you mentioned the Band-Aid analogy because I feel like in traditional Western medicine, a lot of times they almost like put a Band-Aid, like a
Mhm.
metaphoric Band-Aid on the illness, right? Just healing, like just treating the symptom, but not the root cause of the disease. So it's interesting that you brought up like the actual Band-Aid. People in the Western medicine, people you put a Band-Aid on a wound. It's really how sort of their approach in treating illnesses is just treating the symptoms, not the underlying cause. So
Exactly. And I think that's what I found very relatable to Ayurveda is I was tired of just putting a band-aid on things or just things looking good on the outside when on the inside I wasn't feeling as good. So I think going back to Ayurveda, definitely the science is based on connection of your mind, body, and spirit. So it acknowledges the presence of that connection, and it also relies on being in tune with the cycles of nature, the seasons, using ingredients and remedies that are available in nature, and the concept of food as medicine and nature as healing, which really resonated with me. So that's a little bit about Ayurveda in a nutshell. It's a whole ocean of studies, and this is just a little drop of what I've learned so far.
Yeah. And in that blog article, I like how you mentioned in Ayurveda, like diet isn't just the food you eat, it's what you consume as well. Can you explain a little bit about that? I thought that was really interesting. It's like even what you consume, like on social media, that also affects you as well. That's part of your diet.
Yeah, exactly. So in Ayurveda, we consider diet to be consisting of food and water, which is very obvious, but also your breath. So if you've noticed, when you're angry or you're frustrated or you're stressed out, your breath changes, the way you
Oh,
breathe changes. So the way you're breathing is also a form of diet. And then sensory perceptions. So all your five senses, what are they? What are the inputs that are coming to you through your sensory perceptions is also considered to be diet in Ayurveda. And it's important to be mindful of what are you feeding your mind, because what you feed your mind is being digested by your mind. So if you're going to overload your mind with things, or your nervous system or your senses with a lot of inputs, then it's going to be difficult for your body to digest it. So it's a very interesting and common sense view of looking at things, which I really like about Ayurveda. Is it's so simple. There's you just understand it when you listen to it. So that, I think, that's beautiful about this particular modality.
and there's a concept called like dosha, right, in Ayurveda. Can you kind of briefly, and I believe that there are three types. Can you briefly tell us
Mhm.
what they are and what they mean?
Yeah, so there's three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So in Ayurveda, it's considered that your body is made of five elements and three functional energies. So the five elements are space, air, fire, water, and earth. And the permutation and combination of these elements creates functional energies, which is the three doshas. So Vata is made of air and space. As you can imagine, Vata is very light and airy and um, flowy. Pitta is made of fire and water. So as you can imagine, it has a fiery element. People who have a lot of drive or competitive, who have those personality traits, it's easy to kind of guess that they may have a Pitta personality to them. And then the final one is Kapha, which is a combination of water and earth. And as you can imagine, that combination feels very restorative, nurturing. Um, you know, um, Kapha dosha is good for your immunity. So, yeah, so these three doshas or functional energies are basically combinations of elements that you find in nature. And whatever you associate to the qualities of those elements, you can find it in the qualities of the dosha. So that's an easy way to remember what to expect from each dosha.
It kind of reminds me of in like astrology. I'm like a big astrologer, but it's kind of that there's like the earth, air, and fire signs, and I think all the different qualities. And it's also, yeah, I mean, not that you need to like live your life according to whatever your astrology is, but I thought that was interesting how that there are different elements that kind of categorize us. But with the dosha, my understanding is that your whatever your dosha is, you should have you should sort of like cater your like lifestyle habits according to what your dosha is in order to optimize,
Mhm.
correct? So do you
Yeah.
like, can you give us an example like what your dosha is and how do you um, sort of hack your life, like how do you curate your lifestyle habits and daily practices to kind of optimize your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to elaborate on that. So, so there's a bunch of quizzes, or you can call it questionnaires or intake forms that help you determine what your body constitution is as well. So I'm happy to share some resources with
Yeah.
the community. But through what I have learned and through talking to, Ayurvedic doctors and just taking some of these assessments, I have come to understand that my main body type or my main dosha is pitta, which is a combination of fire and water. And even as I was filling out the questionnaire, I could just instinctively or intuitively know that this is what is going to come out to me, because some
Mm.
of the things that I naturally am inclined towards is being organized, being productive, um, being driven, being motivated. All of these things come very naturally to me. So the way for me to balance out, going to the imbalance or the extreme side is remembering to relax, remembering to do gentle, nourishing activities, or remembering to if I am already so driven, CrossFit may not be such a good idea for me to
Right.
work out, because it's going to drive me even more. It's a competitive type of a workout. So instead, going for a gentle yoga or yin yoga or doing grounding activities, that's going to be a better way for me to balance my drive and motivation and that competitive spirit that can sometimes come out if my dosha is imbalanced. So that's a simple example of lifestyle, how to balance your lifestyle. And then there's also ways to balance your dosha through your nutrition, right? So for somebody who has a lot of fire element, it's not advisable to eat a lot of hot spices in my
Mm.
meals, which kind of makes sense because there's already
Yep.
so much heat in
Right.
my body. It makes more sense to eat more cooling foods like maybe cucumbers in summers or watermelons in summers, or just very grounding foods like maybe a butternut squash soup in winters or fall. So adding some of these elements or adding cooling elements in my diet makes more sense for me. And I have actually really experienced the benefits of practicing this. I used to struggle a lot with acid reflux, which is inflammation, in your digestive system with all of the acids, and which again, I think it's a direct correlation to that fire element, that heat in my body. And just being able to practice some of these lifestyle changes, which are very simple, inexpensive, um, I think it's really brought a lot of balance to my system. So that's something I'm grateful for. And I think that self awareness is such a key step to making these changes in your lifestyle, like understanding the why behind why am I doing this? How is it helping me? So
Yeah,
that's important for me. Yeah.
absolutely. I think you brought up such a good point, and I just want to share sort of like a personal story about how I think a lot of times we do things because, like we think that these things are good for me. Like, for instance, I always thought HIIT workouts, I'm like obsessed with HIIT workouts, but I realized
Yeah.
workouts actually not good for my body. So recently I've sprained my ankle. So I've actually been kind of like not just doing really light exercises. And
Mhm.
the first time in, I want to say 6 years, my menstrual cycle actually went back to normal. It's
Wow, that's
great. And
amazing.
like a very personal story, but I don't mind sharing with the community. It's been
Yes.
I think sometimes even it's like 40 to like 50 days where it's like,
Mhm.
doctor, I'm like, I don't think this is normal. She's like, well, you might just be really stressed out. And I have seen so many different types of doctors and naturopath and trying to kind of regulate. I did a lot of like hormone tests, and literally this past month, I haven't done really like, I still eat the same food. Granted, I'm kind of on holiday, so I'm not as stressed out. But the only thing that I changed was like
Mhm.
doing. And it's like back to like 28 days. It's so bizarre.
Wow.
I totally, so everything that you're saying about sort of like eating the like what we consume, even the workouts and what we eat, like the diet and like our what we eat, sort of catering that to our body constitution. Because in Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine too, like you're supposed to eat this
Mhm.
your Chinese constitution. So if you have a lot of heat inside, you should be eating food that's like cooling, right? Because if not, it's actually going to aggregate more like it's going to cause more inflammation in your body. So all
Mhm.
everything that you're saying kind of really resonates with me, and I just kind of want to share that. I was like kind of
That's wonderful. I love that.
not and this is actually what my body I think my body's just kind of going back to normal because I feel like this is I should not be doing all of these intense workouts. It's just not good for my body.
Mhm.
I also
Yeah.
friend who used to do a lot of workout, like a lot of intense, like strength training and like CrossFit, and she wasn't losing weight. And she's a
Mm-hmm.
doctor, and he was like, all of this workout is actually contributing to more inflammation in your body. Your
Yeah.
body constitution, you actually need like lighter workout. So more do like,
Mm-hmm.
and she made that switch and she lost so much weight. It was
Yeah.
crazy. It was like, so I think that to your point, a lot of times we just do these things because we enjoy them, which I don't think you should stop, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe just tweak it a bit or do less of it and then try to do other things that are good for your body. And I think
Yeah.
so just like you said, like little lifestyle changes. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hear you on that one. And I think for me, when I do very intensive workouts, I feel like it aggravates my anxiety because your brain has to work faster to kind of, be in the rhythm with the intensity. Versus when I do gentle yoga, I feel so much calmer after the practice. So, yeah, I totally hear you on those things.
Yeah. So my question is, what are your top three wellness tips that you have worked for you or your clients? Especially in maintaining your mental well-being or in handling major life transitions. Because for you too, like I feel like your story is so inspiring because you came here, you moved first into San Francisco and then now moved to Vancouver, especially during a
Mhm.
pandemic, and also making that taking that big leap into launching your coaching business. So lots of transitions kind of happen in your life. What are your top three tips that, if people come to you for advice, you'd be like, these are the three sort of like my mantras that I live by?
Mm-hmm. So, I think what really helps me is tuning in with myself, my body, and my intuition. So, journaling is a big form of wellness and self-care for me. Being able to write down all my thoughts, feelings, body sensations on paper, and it also sometimes is a form of purging for me. So there's not, it clears a lot of mind space. It helps me with getting a lot of clarity. So I think really being able to tune in with your body and your intuition is a big one for me in terms of self care and self love. So that's one thing which I think is very easy to practice. Um, and then the second one I would actually say is, uh, being I I think being loving towards yourself and being mindful of what your attitude is when you're eating food. So
Mm.
again, in Ayurveda, it's not about. Uh, so Ayurveda says it's not what you eat; it's what you digest.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah.
that's so interesting. So it's not about I can eat, a burger and fries and a milkshake, but my body has better capacity to digest it during lunch than at dinner. So it's okay to eat what you're eating, but just being mindful of how much can you digest, or in what quantity can you digest, or when in the day can you digest, in what season can you digest.
Interesting.
So that's actually, and then just simple things like eating warm foods, or having a calm environment when you're eating, focusing on the food that you're biting. So I think if I have to bottom line it, your mindset when you're eating food or what you're putting into your body is more important than, um, obviously what you eat is important, but
How
how you eat it and knowing what you can digest, I think that's just such powerful information. So
Wow.
that's another one. And yeah, I think finally, I also love reading and doing a lot of self-awareness activities. So that's just my way of being well is, having self-awareness and knowledge through holistic ways. So I think that's another one. Just
Yeah.
very simple wellness tips that help me, and I'm sure people have their own way of feeling good about themselves. But one of the major transformations that I have had personally is shifting from that mindset of efforting and trying too hard.
I was gonna say in your blog article you talked about that, and that was like
Yeah.
that really resonated with me.
Absolutely. I think just being able to shift from that mindset of, you know, you can't be successful unless you are struggling and efforting and trying too hard and you're stressed out, to a mindset of success to me means self-care and relaxing and having ease in my life, and things can be simple and I can still be successful. So I think that transformation or change in that core belief
Totally.
has had a huge impact on me. And being somebody who was very hung up on, you know, the degrees and the titles and what looks good on paper, to shifting to, does this feel good to me? Am I enjoying the journey? Versus like being hung up on the destination. So I think those two mindset shifts have been like the rewards of this whole journey, I feel.
Everything you was also taking baby steps, right? Baby
Yeah.
steps to your goals. I think
Mhm.
that I was like, oh wow, like that rings so true, because I think when we have these lofty goals or we want to make big life transitions, we think that has to happen overnight. But no, but life is like um, a friend sort of made this comparison. Life is like putting together this like big 1,000 piece puzzle, right? It's like you have to like
Mhm.
together, like one by one. It takes time to build this puzzle, and it might not make sense right now because you can't see the complete picture, and you won't be able to
Mhm.
see the picture until all the pieces are in place. But that takes time, and
Yeah.
give up or they get frustrated. But it's just baby stuff, like one piece at a time. So I think that when I saw what you said, I was like, oh my god, it reminds me of what my friend said about life is like a big 1,000 piece puzzle. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that approach. And yeah, just baby steps. And unfortunately, the big picture and the final product is like just glamorized and glorified. And then you forget that there's so much that goes behind the
yeah,
scenes.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
But also diet. I also just want to mention, because in the article too, you also briefly mentioned why in Ayurvedic medicine it talks about why it's good to eat before 7 p.m. So can you just talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that for people who are tuning in?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's actually a fun one. In Ayurveda, we consider that our digestive fire is directly linked to the cycles of the sun. So your digestive fire is at its peak when the sun is at its peak, which is at noon. So you feel, that hunger during lunch. Like especially when I used to go physically to the office, I used to kind of know that it's time to get lunch because I'm feeling so hungry, and I feel like it was directly connected to the cycle of the sun. And as the sun sets, your digestive fire also starts dwindling towards the end of the day. So that's the high behind eating food by sunset or by 7 p.m. And I would also say 7 p.m. because you need to give your body enough time to digest the food before you go to sleep. So let's say you go to sleep at 10, so that kind of brings you back to 7 p.m. or when the sun sets, like either of the two, that's kind of how you can measure, what's an ideal time for you to have dinner. Um, yeah, so that's a little bit of the why behind, that your digestive fire and being in tune with the cycle of the sun when it comes to your digestion.
Mm, awesome. Well, I can feel like we're coming to the end of the chat, but I have, I also, before we like sort of end the chat, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your mission to support immigrant women such as yourself. Kind of want to just you sort of, where did that passion come from, and why is it so important to you to support this community, especially in healthcare? Obviously, the Holistic Panda is a platform to help people find wellness services, but it's also our help people, especially the Asian community, find culturally competent providers, because I think a lot of the times it's easier to talk to someone who understands your cultural values, background, and experiences. And I think even you earlier, you talked about how you're learning to let go of sort of like building your resume and really focusing on finding the things that really bring you joy in life, right? I think that
Mhm.
so I don't want to say foreign in the Asian culture, but it kind of is. I think that I'm sure you can relate. I think growing
Mhm.
and women, it's like we've been told you need to work hard, you need to work hard, you need to like, climb the corporate ladder or like, have a big house, have a family. Like I think at least for me, I was never really told like, not that I think my parents were always really supportive, but I was never really,
Mhm.
you can go after, pursue what you want, right? It was, they kind of was like, well, maybe you want to think about, pursuing law, pursuing medicine, or pursuing, working in finance. So anyways, that was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, working with,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah, no, I love that you brought it up because I feel like even though you're not directly told of these things, you tend to internalize the narrative that the society has, put forward, which I think I did to some extent. And it was unconscious until I started really working through my stuff. And I realized there's so much narrative that I've internalized, but nobody has directly told me to do this. But you just like hear about it and you see it, and you kind of feel like that's probably the only way, but it's not.
oh,
But anyway, I think coming back to your question about being an immigrant and supporting the immigrant community, I realized that in my journey as an immigrant, there were not a lot of resources that were specific to my journey or my life path. And when I started going to, taking coaching up or, starting my healing journey, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me or who had a path like me or who talked like me in those spaces. And having that sense of belonging is it's such a good feeling. It's a very encouraging feeling. So I think that's kind of been something that I found missing in my path. And it would be great to have more people who come from these experiences and can help, people uh, who have been living these experiences. And the other part or the other side to this story is also understanding that the complexities of this experience, right? So there's a lot of support for minority communities and people of color, but I think being an immigrant on top of that is an added layer of nuance or added layer of complexity, which I feel sometimes gets heavily discounted because you're not only trying to do your job as that person, but you're also trying to navigate a new country, a new culture, your immigration, documentation, which is anything but fun. So there's so many other things that you're trying to navigate. Staying connected to your roots and embracing the Western society around you. And it's such a balance that nobody really teaches you. It's something that you have to learn on your own. And I feel having all of those layers of complexity on top of, some of the complexities that you already have to work with is an area that has, in my experience, it's been heavily discounted. And I feel it's time to, shine a light on that and get relevant and specific and specialized support for that lived experience. So it's a combination of like a couple of things. And um, I also think that oftentimes we forget the strength and courage that we gain as part of our immigration journey. And would be amazing to, keep reminding yourself of um, how brave you have been in coming so far and, just giving yourself, cheering on yourself or giving yourself a kudos for taking on this brave journey. So, yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things for me.
wow. Yeah, absolutely. I think being person of color is hard, but being an immigrant is an extra layer, like you said, has an extra layer of complexity, especially. And then I would also add that even especially as a woman, that's also another layer of like, challenges that you have to face. So
Yeah.
we're coming to the end, but as always, Sonica, like every time we have a conversation, I just feel so much more inspired. I think you're like a beacon of light for so many people, and even just your energy, such a beautiful energy. And I'm really interested to work with you to find out what my dosha is, and to see how,
Mhm.
like, change my lifestyle so I can also optimize my health. But
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It was such a pleasure talking to you, Diana. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
yeah, and all those who are tuning in, just to let you know, if you are interested in learning more about what Ayurvedic medicine is, or even potentially working with Sonica, you can go to theholisticpanda.com and book a discovery call with her. Yeah, she's lovely, even just to connect with her and chat. So, and if you book your first session, we also offer 10% off. So,
Mhm.
well, that thank you all for tuning in. And Sonica, as always, it's a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.